Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, world. You are welcome to Morning Spring today on Western Spring Television. And this is where great, honest, frank, deep conversation will happen every day. And it's towards the public good. We usually look at the front pages of different papers for headlines to inform, our teamy viewers and listeners. And of course, we then get talking at the other side of that. Anything worth talking about, in as much as about the public good, this is where you get to hear it from. Speaking to critical stakeholders, including you, distinguished viewers. Femi Ojo is my name. Gives me great pleasure for welcoming me here. Welcome, Toka, as well. Toka, good morning.
Good morning, Femi. It's a beautiful morning.
It is.
And I'm glad to see you.
Right.
I'm glad to have you join us to the viewer. Thank you so much for keeping faith with us on this amazing channel, WSTV. And this is Morning Spring. This is where we serve you, keep you up to date about things happening in the polity around us and the world at large. And then bringing you quality analysis on some of the topical issues that we discuss on the show. My name is Timmy welcoming you amazingly, gladly to the show.
Very well. As I said, we will look at the front pages of different papers as we do on this program. But then, there are other things that we must talk about. And, the dust is gathering again as far as traditional titles in Yoruba land is concerned, especially the ancient schools of an authority, from the Oyo Alafi. The Oyo Empire with Alafi as the monarch there. At this time, we have His Royal Majesty Akim Owade, right? So, and of course, at Ile-Ife, the ancient city and town of Ile-Ife, where many believe is the cradle of civilization, or by Eniton, who is Imperial Majesty, or by Eniton, who is the Ojaja II, the Oni of Ife. Now, you remember, sometimes in August, there was this back and forth about who has the right to, install an Okolomo in Yoruba land. And so it was more like, in as much as about Yoruba land is the exclusive preserve of the Alaafin. At least the palace made so many statements at that time to say, if it's about chieftaincy title in Yoruba land, installation, investiture, and of course, conferment of chieftaincy title that has to do with the entire Yoruba land, the Alaafin of your palace said is the exclusive preserve of the Alaafin. And it was about the Okolomo of Oodua at that time that was bestowed on, an illustrious son of Yoruba land, and there was this back and forth. At that time, later we understand that there was an intervention, from different elders in the land. And, a few weeks ago, it was the turn of the Tinubus, okay, the first lady, Yatuashe of Oodua, in Ile-Ife. And of course, it was the turn of Sheyi Tinubu at the weekend as the Okolomo of Yoruba land. Okay, fine. And yesterday, there was this news or, publication that circulated the social media space that there will be a confinement of an Aureo no Kakanfo of Oodua on a particular former general, who is a Yoruba man, actually, an Ijesha man, so to speak. Now, and that has generated ripple to say, we have a sitting Aureo no Kakanfo of Yoruba land. That's Ibagani. Aureo no Kakanfo in Yoruba land is more like the generalissimo, the commander of the entire race. Warlord. They call him generalissimo, the most superior commander of the entire army of the Yoruba land. That's what it means. So it's the generalissimo. Now, that we are hearing, there might be another confinement or a confinement of an Aureo no Kakanfo of Oodua. So many persons are saying it's the same Yoruba land. There is a city one Before Gani Adams, it was MKO Abiola, Moshood Kashimawola Wale Abiola was the Barren Kakanfo. And after him, there was a period of years that that particular chieftaincy title was vacant. And then it was Gani Adams. Gani Adams is still alive. May he be young, according to his creator. And now, conferment of Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò. Would there be another generalissimo that has to do with Oòduà? Because anything that is done in Ile-Ife is always about the Oòduà. Okay, so where does that belong? And some are thinking, do we really need this? Is this proliferation of chieftaincy titles, or is just this subtle rivalry between these two actually? And some will say, if it is actually, as a Yoruba man, as they will say, as a young person, they will say, oh, my mouth cannot talk something like that. But in as much as about this profession, humbly speaking, some will say the rivalry thing, it is not now, it's not new. That it wouldn't be, if there is anything like that, let me make that point, it wouldn't be the newest thing between
both houses
and Oba Owade. All right. Some will say it was like that for years between the late Olubushe Eriogun, that's Oba Okwande Sijuade, and the Alaafin of Oyo, the late one now, that have passed on, Oba Lamidi Adeyemi. It's always like that. But then, what does this mean for the entire land? Because some are already saying, is Yoruba race becoming a joke with these people, tools that are supposed to be beyond and above reproach? Or is it the people that is trying to cause problem or initiate one where there is none? That's one thing that we can just wave away, actually, in this part of the country.
Yes, and as they say, uneasy lies indeed the head, that wears the crown.
In this case, heads that are wearing crowns, right. Ancient crowns.
And then, as you said it, yes, it's one thing to do our jobs. And then the part where we say that we really, I don't know, this issues now are really deep issues as they concern the culture, the tradition of a certain tribe of this nation. And then at this point, I believe that, like you said, or like I would say now, that we have come to a point, sadly, in our lives where tradition has been, watered down by politics and what have you. And then I think that with this age-long, let me say it that way, age-long rivalry, generation of power, power tussle and all of those. Probably we have come to a point now where we'll be taking back to the tradition, the way it was before courts began to decide, matters of tradition, of culture, and all of those. And I can say, the court probably is supreme to maybe tradition, or maybe we'll now hear that tradition is supreme. But whatever it is, we'll be talking about this, and we hear from elders, who are custodians of culture and tradition that have been passed from generation to generation, to know, it's been a long back and forth. And I think that we should just nip the whole thing in the bud at this point and tell who exactly is who, which is which house is more powerful. I don't want to say things.
That's another point that some will say. Must we look for the most superior among the two?
Culture
people are in their domains, and their reign is supreme as kings.
It's still the Yoruba land.
Yeah, it is actually. But then that's why we'll look into that in the course of
maybe at this time we should just set the record straight and say who is who, or maybe you'll not hear from him because I wanted to say maybe Yoruba land.
It's a conversation that we must have. We will do that in the course of the program today. And of course, talking about governance and politics, it is still, what it is. I saw the budget of Lagos State yesterday, and it really, Lagos is Lagos, actually.
Yes.
That's why they will say Lagos is more than some countries. Actually, in Africa, the size of the budget is in excess of 4 trillion naira.
Exactly.
4 trillion naira.
Yeah.
So only Lagos can be a Lagos. You know, why some will say that's a prosperous state, there are some that will say, yes, it is, but they can do far much better than they are currently doing. The kind of investment, the kind of, what Lagos means, what it has always been, even before from 1999 till now, it has always been strategic. You know, the way it centers, or don't forget, Lagos was former, the seat of the country.
Capital, yeah.
Actually, so it represents so many
and
things.
it's
4
now the
trillion
confluence of commerce.
Really, 4 trillion naira it dwarfs the budget of like 9 states. You know, there are some states that doesn't even come close. But then we hope it beholds prosperity on Lagosians, as they call them. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll let you into the front pages of different dailies. Today, are Morning Spring, Western Spring Television. Okay. Here we All right, we kickstart the newspaper segment from the front page of The Nation. The Nation today. Federal government, no going back on tax law from January 1. No going back on tax law from January 1, and with the rider against of Tinubu's administration, and Information Minister Idris, and freed Niger pupils, teachers received by Governor. CDS applauds troops' courage in rescue operation, and Bottom Street federal job seekers to undergo drug test. Court halts on one's motion on Awujale. All right, federal job seekers to undergo drug test. Court halts on one's motion on Awujale. All right, it is what it is. If you're planning to get a federal job, just know that you will be tested for drugs. And one interesting thing, right, about drugs, especially some certain drugs, even as some of the most common, as the marijuana, the Igbo that they call it, weed, whatever it's called in different languages, it can stay. I've spoken to professionals who said it can still be traced in your blood 6 months after you have taken the first puff, actually. So it's not that, when I'm going for a few days before the interview, I won't puff anything. But it can be from your first puff, the way they do it, the next 6 months can still be traced in your blood. So you are done for. If actually it's coming close, by the way, it serves no gain, no particular gain for whatever pleasure people derive in that. Court outcome one's motion on Awujale, I think Wasiu and Marshall has gone to court, to challenge some of the processes, and I think his case has been struck out. All right. Here, U.S. to partially suspend visa issuance to Nigerians, 18 other nationals from January 1. Why? All right. And just above that, 2027, APC set to bounce back in Kano as stakeholders endorsed Tinubu for second term, Barau for governorship, and harvest of budget, Makinde Kefas, Sani signed 892 billion naira, 653 billion naira, 985.9 billion naira. And Uzodima earlier, Abdulrazak presented 1.4344 trillion naira, 805 billion naira, 644 billion naira. What's the money there? If you ask me, that'll be all from the Nation.
All right, now let's check out the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. And the banner headline here says, Autonomy battle, local governments demand direct funds as states receive 7.43 trillion naira. Local governments allocation surged by 42% in 2025, 18 months after federal government fails to implement Supreme Court judgment. 18 months after federal government fails to implement Supreme Court judgment. Contract revisions cost federal government extra 929 billion naira. Contract revisions costs federal government extra 929 billion naira. That's on page 2 of the Punch's paper this morning. Yuletide. Police tighten security. Federal government declares holidays. That's on page 19. On page 9, oil earnings fall short by 16.2 trillion naira. Kwamwan loses bid to block Awujale selection process. That's on page 7. And just above and besides the nameplate, killings, U.S. conducts surveillance flights over Nigeria. That's according to a report right there. And to the bottom strip, U.S. launches $3,000 leave voluntarily immigration plan. U.S. launches $3,000 leave voluntarily immigration plan. Right? And that's on page, and that's on the Punch newspaper rather this morning on page 7. Those headlines on the Punch.
All right. From the Punch newspaper, let's see the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune. Oyo Ogun Lagos unveil joint security offensive to secure highway cities. Go after bandit criminals in Southwest. Chief of Army Staff tells troops. And Awujale Court rejects 1's request to stop process. Fixes January 14th for hearing. And just beside that, you have the picture of the Deputy Governor of Oyo State, Barrister Bayo Lawal, the Alaafin of Oyo, Akim Owade, the Governor, Seyi Makinde, the Olubado of Ibadan, Oba Rashidi Ladoja, the Speaker, Oyo State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Debo Ogundoyin, at the signing of the 2026 appropriation bill into law in Ibadan. Right, yesterday, Monday. And below that, again, another picture of Minister of Environment, Mr. Balarabe Lawal, Minister of Works, Dave Umai, Governor Sim Fubara, and National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu after a visit to Governor Fubara at the Government House, Rivers State, on Monday. You know, these are some of the issues concerned that people raise. What's the NSA's business in some of these political visitations and conversations? Yes, you're a member of the APC, that's fine, that's okay. But as NSA, should you be preoccupied in conversations that are extracurricular to your brief as the national security? That work is busy enough, is huge of a task. And for you to be having conversations about politics and all of those
generally
things,
busy, and especially in Nigeria at this time,
right,
you shouldn't even have those, the luxury of time.
To be going, and he was quoted to be saying, oh, Tinubu loves you and all of those things, to Sim Fubara. What? All right, so much.
Well, other people could argue that it might be consultations as the National Security Advisor to get first-hand information from these governors from states, to know what exactly are their, specific or peculiar security issues.
This is not.
We should be,
this is not one.
We should be open-minded.
No, this is not one of those. We know what it is. Federal government introduces mandatory drug test for public service applicants. All right. So just like I said earlier, you might want to reconsider your ways, if it's only because of your future and your career. Ribadu leads federal government team to all spill site in Ogoni. Tinubu is pleased with your leadership. Ribadu tells Fubara. Stay focused, Mr. NSA. Health. FDA approves first pill to treat low libido in women after menopause. Right? And Kogi government, others battle to ease Lokoja Abuja gridlock has been, tales of pains, especially in some of these high traffic highways. You talk about Lagos Abuja, Lokoja Abuja, Lagos Ibadan Expressway. And of course, today is 22nd. It will still be building.
23rd.
23rd, right? Because people are moving. Even in Oshobo, I was in town last night, and it was quite a busy one. In fact, let me use this opportunity to inform those that are watching, state government and the officials, or those that have their ears, to tell them the Jericho axis, that particular junction, it's been terrible in the past few days. You know why? Because the Lameko end is still closed because of the ongoing work there. And we know during festivities, the state government usually open up Now, at least you will say for every festive period, you will have additional vehicles coming into town. So you can imagine the level of gridlock. Now, there was no, at least in the evening when I passed to and fro, there was no traffic warden, no road safety officials there. And you know how our people move. Now, this person, vehicles are coming from the Ring Road end.
Yeah.
The other one coming from the town. The other one from the Lameco end. This one coming from Little British area. Everybody is meeting at that point. And there was no regulator, no traffic warning. It was a sorry state yesterday. And I'm sure it's going to be worse.
What's up? Yes, today, tomorrow.
Now, the only thing that I think government can do is to open up that Lameco end so that people coming from Okefia and they are going to Gbomosho or going to Agubelewo can use that particular road and the traffic will not be diverted to that point.
Well,
and I think it's only logical and common sense that they do that.
Well, however they want to do it, however the government wants to go about it, the best thing would be to issue a traffic advisory so that the people can know what ends, to pass.
It's not even about advisory alone. There is no alternative road.
all of the, I mean, at least they could tell, which parts of the road, they may not be able to, I would have to disseminate traffic wardens all through the city, but then they should tell, to pass through some certain routes so that,
maybe
we could mitigate all of this. Yeah, for time, especially in this period. Yeah.
Till like maybe 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I think it will help because there is a way Nigerians behave. That one is a people problem, not a government problem.
Yeah.
You see people coming this way instead of you to 50 vehicles are
let there be concessions.
Can you hold on?
Exactly.
And no somebody, and then you begin to hear grammar. Do you know who I am? That's Nigerian.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm almost tempted to ask them, are you having what do they call this thing? Amnesia. Are you forgetting who you are? You keep asking me who are you. All right. So these are the issues. Jale. Now, I've taken that story. Top stream, U.S. steps of surveillance over Nigeria, over Trump's intervention threat report. U.S. steps of surveillance over Nigeria after Trump's intervention threat report. An ADC for 2026 budget says it promotes fiscal recklessness, wishful thinking. ADC for 2026 budget says it promotes fiscal recklessness or wishful thinking. And without the ADC even saying that, one thing I've always maintained everywhere, especially on this program, is budget performance. Now, 2024 was presented by Tinubu, no budget performance, a report. 2025 was presented by Tinubu. I'm not even sure we are running 2025 now because we had 2024, 2025, maybe an extended 2023 at some point. We are going into 2026 now. And we understand there are some projects or plans, proposals in 2025 that will be shifted into 2026. The point is, the 2025 budget that was presented, how did it perform? But whenever the president comes to the Senate or the House of Reps, of course, with the National Assembly, instead of asking the right questions, everybody is paying homage. And then on your mandate, they shall stand. And all of those things.
Always.
But the real question, to stand on his mandate is not my problem. But the thing is, the questions, even pretend for optics sake, for the camera's sake, for you to be doing something. That would be all from the Nigerian today.
All right, let's move now to Vanguard newspaper. And Vanguard has, let's check this. It says, Gazette Ferrari, we didn't alter tax laws. That's according to federal government. Adds, it's NAS affair. And no, those are the riders. They saw the rider, what we didn't pass can't become law. That's according to lawmakers. Senators, reps sit today over controversial alterations, others. ADP, rights group demand Sarah probe. Those are the riders to Gazette Ferrari. We didn't alter tax laws. That's according to federal government. You can see that on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. All right, we can see a picture here of released Papiri school children with Governor Bago. Rescued pupils at St. Mary's Catholic School, Papiri, in Niger State. In a group photograph for the site at the state's governor, Mohammed Umar Bago, at Government House, Mina yesterday. So it means that the children were transported again to the government house just for, the governor to meet the released school children. All right. And below that, diplomatic spat with U.S. on religious violence results. That's according to federal government. But on the other paper, we're hearing the U.S. steps up surveillance over Nigeria after Trump's intervention threat. Just remember, Femi, when you were speaking about some of the agreements that Nigeria said or claimed to have had with the U.S. And you were speaking and harping on the fact that we're only hearing the Nigerian side.
Yeah.
I mean, in the papers or, when you Google it, we're hardly seeing the U.S. talking about it. And this we can see again where the federal government is saying that the diplomatic spat, with U.S. on religious violence has been resolved. And it's on this, violence and the fact that the U.S. is saying that they don't know who is who. And so they're stepping up surveillance in Nigeria. We can see two different sides. One is taking stricter measures on Nigerians. And this, from us, is saying that the diplomatic spat with U.S. on religious violence has been resolved. We don't know which is which. On page 8, that's on page 8, and the writer ends ambiguous treatment of terrorists, outlines 2026 roadmap. Right, ends ambiguous treatment of terrorists, outlines 2026 roadmap, whatever that is. All right, to the bottom strip. Insecurity, Oyo, Ogun, Lagos launch joint task force to fish out terrorists. That's on page 10. On page 7, dust over conferment of Yoruba chieftaincy titles. All right, and from the world of sport here, ahead African opener, Super Eagles static on FIFA CAF rankings. All right. So the top strip of the paper above the nameplates, capital importation declined 62% to $1.13 billion. ADC, Tinubu's 2026 budget buries next generation in debt. That's on page 9. Trump recalls U.S. envoys to Nigeria. 29 other countries. That's also on page 9. Yuletide. Southeast bound commuters battle extortion, bad roads. That's on page 6. These headlines right there on Vanguard newspaper. All right, let's check out Femi's favorite part of the Vanguard newspaper, Mr. and Mrs. What's your own with the bread seller? And what do you mean by succulent flesh and soft to the touch? Succulent, fleshy, and soft to the touch. Well, that's from Mrs. And Mr. responds, I'm talking about her bread. I'm talking about her bread.
I was almost jumping out of my flesh when you said bread, that B-R-E first. Thank God it landed on the D.
I'm not Joseph.
And not the ST part. All right.
All right.
All right.
Succulent, fleshy for bread.
This is the part where we call for a break. You won't drag me into what I'm not prepared for. When we come back, we speak to these issues, especially historic, traditional, and cultural, conversation that has to do with chieftaincy titles in Yoruba land and who has the authority to do what. Stay with us.